live from the home entertainment viewing dungeon of Cyrus's house. We are remote viewing, and we are on the air.
We are. It is the beginning, or at least it's the real beginning.
Yes, the actual beginning of
the end.
The actual beginning of the very possible end.
Isn't everything the beginning of the end, if you look at it in those terms? Mr. Glass is half empty.
Well, I don't think
Are we just gonna start spouting lines from closing time, or
I don't know. I thought we were doing REM songs. I'm very confused.
That's great. It always starts with an earthquake. Let's just get into this. We actually did one of these not that long ago where we were it was kind of a Leog addendum that was catching up on the home viewing titles of DVDs and Blu-rays of stuff that had come out over that past month, mainly because there was Fantastic Fest was right there, and I was really behind, and everybody was nice enough to pitch in and help me throw out some reviews on audio. But it actually had a tremendous response.
Yeah.
So I started talking to a lot of the people who I get this stuff from and said, hey, what would you think if we did this audio show? Would you have a lot of stuff we could give away as prizes to our fans?
And as it turns out, they did have a lot of stuff we could give away as prizes to our fans.
They did, a rather intimidating amount of stuff, in fact. And so we started talking more, and, Brian was the obvious choice to have on the show with me.
Well, thank you very much.
And then, along with Brian, comes Luke, the great Luke Mullen.
Luke Mullen is here.
Guest starring, I assure you.
Film School Rejects Luke Mullen is here because you cannot possibly talk about Blu-rays and specs and technical data without Luke Mullen.
I feel like I should have worn glasses with all the spec talk.
Yeah, he is sort of the Rain Man of Blu-ray specs.
I'm saying he's like the Robin of our show.
Yes. Yeah. You know what?
Slightly less gay.
You just laugh, and I'll tell jokes about how black and female you are.
If we're gonna go with comic book references, and now I realize you meant the other Robin. I'm gonna say that he is more of our Oracle. He's the one who is like, you know what, Luke, we need a little bit more information on this. Can you help us out? And from the giant computer that is his brain, he will pull out and drop. He will pull out Wikipedia-like information and drop some truth bombs on you.
But we are here indeed to look at the DVDs and Blu-rays that came out over the last month, which in this case was November. So we are looking for the releases that came out in November, although the giveaways are a little bit more scattered than that in time of release. Some of them are kind of new.
And of course, the voice you're hearing is Cyrus.
Yes.
And I am his co-host, Brian Salisbury. And thank you very much, Spilios. You can stop those letter writing campaigns. I'm not going anywhere.
Is that what they were writing?
Maniacal laugh.
They totally misunderstood my call to action.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what you get.
It is indeed. Excuse my clinking ice, but if I'm recording, I gotta have a drink.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Say one of the titles that actually I was really kind of surprised it took so long to come out on Blu-ray was James Mangold's Copland.
Ah, yes.
Now, Copland is an odd title in that it didn't do very well in the theaters because a lot of people were you've got Sylvester Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro in this film, and with a cast like that, people were like, okay, this is some like a gangland tale, like Goodfellas, but with Stallone, who was being lauded for his acting, playing a really different type of role, with a serious performance by Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I know I personally was kind of disappointed that I didn't feel like I really got what it was selling itself as. That being said, it's such a good script.
I totally got it, and I loved every second of it. And in fact, I think the biggest surprise that most people have when they hear about this movie is that it's not directed by Martin Scorsese.
Sure.
Given the cast and the subject matter. And in fact, this was kind of an omission from our last Leog episode about noir films, because it is a really interesting sort of neo-noir. And I agree. Stallone's performance is probably his best one since Nighthawks, in my opinion, which is covering a large expanse of time and a large expanse of really shitty, awesome, but shitty movies.
Cobra!
And Over the Top, and Rocky IV, and the list goes on and on and on, Demolition Man. But I think Copland is one of those movies that you have to kind of sit down and legitimately take stock of. Stallone he's kind of a tragic hero. He's a flawed hero, but a guy who is always trying to do the right thing. Doesn't quite have the mental capacity to know exactly how to do that all the time. But once he gets it in his head that he is going to stand up against the evil forces, you can't stop him.
Well, why don't you tell a little bit about what the actual plot is?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What happens is that there is an incident involving... there's this town that's set up in New Jersey that
Don't
has
say black. Don't say black. Don't say black.
it's no. It's it's basically what it is it's a place where a lot of former cops and current cops have set up, either their current housing or kind of a secondary home, and it's a town that's kind of known for being run by cops. Everyone from the local sheriff, played by Sylvester Stallone, to any members of like the town council are all former cops. It's a place where cops feel like they can go when there's a little bit of heat on them, and you have a group of especially corrupt cops. Harvey Keitel and
Harvey Keitel's a corrupt cop?
I know, it's crazy.
What a stretch he had to do for that.
Exactly. Robert Patrick. And what happens is that Michael Rappaport, who also plays kind of not a super corrupt cop, but a kind of a jackass, accidentally or very purposely kills a guy that he thinks is trying to kill him, who turns out doesn't have a gun. And then he fakes his own death, and they need a place to hide out, so they all kind of flock to Copland. Well, Sylvester Stallone, in the meantime, is kind of getting tired of all this and decides that things have gotten out of control and he needs to do something about it. But basically the other cops try to kind of treat him as their pet. They're like, oh, don't worry about it, Frankie. You go play pinball or whatever it is that you do.
Yeah.
Because he's a cop that's lost part of his hearing, so he can't be like a cop in the big city. He's kind of just a local sheriff. So he's always kind of has that inferiority complex going on.
And who the fuck commits crimes in a town that everyone who lives there
is a cop? Exactly.
Well, I mean, what did you expect when you called it Copland? It's kind of a
it's not. Yeah,
unfortunate name.
I thought it was a movie set at a donut shop, but it's apparently
you
not.
don't want to go into the wardrobe at the back of the donut shop because that's where it leads.
Either that or to New Jersey.
Yeah, and you have to believe it's there. You have to believe that doorway is there, otherwise it won't show up.
Just put it this way: the Copland version of Mr. Tumnus is not so welcoming with Turkish delight.
Not at all. And he is actually he's a mounted police officer. That's what's ironic about it.
Many Narnia references for the show. I feel.
I may want to take a drink every time we do a Narnia reference. I don't know. That may be the drinking game.
Is that where the first episode's theme is going to be?
I think accidentally, yes.
Oh boy, we just kind of fell into that one. I think one of my problems with this film was really that, and admittedly, only having seen it the once, I haven't got a chance to rewatch this Blu-ray, but like I said, it was expectations. It was like you're going into this and it's presenting it as a type of movie we're expecting Stallone, who is a schlub in this movie. He gained like 60 pounds for it. He's just kind of a, I think maybe if we do, shut up, fat boy. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like that kind of guy, And it was just, I don't know, it was just so goddamn sad. I think another problem is that, and this is something other people have remarked about, it's a thriller, but there's so many goddamn subplots in it.
There really is.
And they slow things way down.
Yeah.
It feels like if you re-edited this and took out all those tiny, unnecessary little subplots, you would have a really taut, solid thriller.
I don't necessarily have a problem with the subplots.
30 minutes long.
It would be about that. I don't have a problem with the subplots, although I think the subplot about Robert De Niro telling people to go to lunch is a little overdone, where he's just like, go to lunch! Everyone, go to lunch! And it's like, okay, why is he screaming at the entire office to go to lunch?
Have you looked at Sylvester Stallone? Clearly, they're going to lunch a lot in this town.
He says it to everyone except Stallone. It's like, you do some push-ups.
Well, just talking about the actual specs here of this disc, like I said, this is the first Blu-ray edition that they've actually put out on this. Supposedly, this is a halfway decent transfer. It's funny, there's this thing I'm just starting to understand now, and the difference between showing grain and muting it to the point where people look like plastic dolls.
I still don't think I understand the difference.
The wonders of DNR.
Yeah.
What is DNR?
Explain that.
DNR is a process that studios use called digital noise reduction that essentially is meant... it's useful in cleaning up old prints that have a lot of specks and dirt and hair. A lot of these films... Copland probably not so much, one of them being that it was made in the 90s, but films, older films from the 70s, films that people didn't think would necessarily ever need to be retransferred or rescanned from the film negatives. Oftentimes the film is deteriorated, and so DNR is a process that can help that if used sparingly, but oftentimes it is slathered about in an attempt to get rid of the grain structure that is naturally there from shooting on 35mm film.
Right.
Because some studios, in some instances, think that if it looks cleaner, if it looks more like high-definition video shot material that people are used to seeing on their TVs today, then they'll be more apt to think that it's a good-looking transfer. The problem with that is that it notoriously makes people look like plastic dolls.
Sure.
One of the most egregious transfers in that regard is the first Predator Blu-ray, where Carl Weathers looks like he has the skin of a baby.
He looks like a Carl Weathers action figure.
Which is funny because Carl Weathers' face is not that smooth.
As it turns out.
Should not be that smooth. And the problem is that you're taking away from what the film is supposed to look like. It's shot on film. It's supposed to have a certain amount of grain.
Right. And there's that fine line because when you're upgrading to HD, because it makes everything that much more intense, for instance, you don't want your blacks all like just smothered out by the grain that was in the original film. You probably do want to wipe that out completely just to give you the real Blu-ray effect because, you know, I don't need to see the grain of the film.
Right, but I think what Luke is saying is like a lot of these companies that are doing the transfers have it's kind of the same as a child's perception of detergent, where it's like if a little gets it clean, then if we pour the whole box in, it'll be super clean, and that causes problems.
No, you've nailed it. You know, that's the same reason why instead of using a super cheap blood squib, they'd rather do the blood in post.
CG blood is the worst. I'm saying it right now.
It is the
so
worst.
DNR is not a bad thing. It is a totally wonderful thing if used sparingly.
That is the lesson for the day.
Well, it seems like on the whole, this was actually, from what I'm reading here, it seems to have been a pretty good job on that. It's not perfect, but what do you expect, really? This wasn't what you would call one of the higher end titles, really, from Lionsgate at this point. And you know, I mean, it's got a free bonus features, but they're all stuff there that are shopped over from the original DVD release.
Sure. But give points to the studio for doing that, because there's so many releases that
they
just
don't
leaves,
even bother that.
No, like the upcoming Rocketeer Blu-ray, which I could not be more excited for, has literally, like, I think the trailer. I think that's all they put on there.
And that's becoming more and more the standard.
It's like, you have it. You have the material on the DVD.
Just
I know,
port it
I have
over.
the DVD on the shelf. Like, just
because a lot of those DVD bonus features are often made by a separate company altogether.
Sure.
And then they say, you know what, we could save a few bucks if we just didn't pay them for those features. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
it's disappointing. So credit at least for porting the few features that may have existed on the DVD version of Copland.
Exactly. Well, let's move on here, and this next one we're going to talk about is actually one of my favorite movies of the last several years. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Now, it is a film that certainly dealt with a certain amount of, I wouldn't go with controversy, but people were like, you know, rental to full price rating. Some people are like, it was all right. And a lot of the confusion seemed to be that it was very surreal at points.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of that has to do because of, you know, the mixture of influences going on here. Now, this was George Clooney's first directorial debut. He went on to do Good Night and Good Luck and
The Good German.
And The Good German. And it's based on a book by Chuck Barris, the game show host from the Newlywed Game. It was a game he created, but he was the host of The Gong Show most famously. And in this book, which is pretty old now, he claimed that the whole time he was doing all this game show stuff, he was secretly a assassin for the CIA. A story which he sticks by the way.
It's an amazing story. Whether it's true or not doesn't even really matter at this point.
No.
Because conceptually, it's so fucking fascinating. I mean, basically, he's working in game shows by day, and he's assassinating people by night.
Yeah.
So he's like Pat Jack Ruby, essentially.
Right. And what you've got is Charlie Kaufman writing the screenplay adaptation, so that in and of itself brings its own level of weirdness to
totally.
it. And then you've got Clooney, whose directing style, it's a little confused at this point. He hasn't quite figured out what he's doing, so he's trying and experimenting a lot, which I think suited this film perfectly.
I think it works a lot more than it doesn't.
But there's a lot of obvious Soderbergh influence, who indeed was one of the producers, and you know, I mean, other people of the day that it's clear that he had been paying attention.
I think
to.
his use of really kind of bizarre transitions is a Soderbergh reference.
Oh, completely. Yeah, but it works so well here.
I like the one where he gets a phone call and he's walking to the edge of his fireplace, and when he gets to the edge of his fireplace, the rest of his room isn't there, and you just see the office of the other person calling. It's such a small, like, little thing, but it's something you don't get very often. I mean, usually you get maybe a split screen or cut back and forth, but I mean, it's just fascinating to see, like, him play with the boundaries of, you know, where these scenes are supposed to begin and end.
Absolutely agree with you. That was one of the most attractive details to this to me. The other one, of course, is that, seriously, who doesn't like watching Sam Rockwell in a movie? And they cast him as Chuck Barris, which is actually kind of uncanny because he does look a fuckload of a lot like a young Chuck Barris. And it really starts from like his early years and you know, him falling in love with Drew Barrymore's character. God. And, you know, that's kind of the relationship of his life in a lot of ways. Like, he goes in and out and dates other women woman, but it always comes back to her.
Yeah.
George Clooney indeed plays the CIA agent who ends up recruiting Chuck as the assassin. Julia Roberts is an operative that he becomes romantically entwined with as well. It's just, there's a lot of really neat stuff that goes on in this film. There's a lot of really funny stuff, and there's some goddamn super dark stuff in here, too.
Definitely.
But I just can't recommend this film more. It was a big surprise because we all walked into it like, directorial debut of a big star with a big head, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting to see his kind of his early days. Where he's got kind of this level of sexual frustration and inadequacy that's really at a level not seen since the last Spill.con. And the great thing about the flashback...
Did you get that?
What's that?
Did you get that sexual inadequacy thing too?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe on my own part, but that's okay. The great thing about the flashback is the way that they're shot. There's like this weird kind of pastel-like filter on everything that kind of makes it look like you're looking at a photograph that is itself within a dream. It's very bizarre. I don't know how they'd actually accomplish that. I don't know.
A lot of different things are going on in this particular film. Filters, really, really hard push contrast. A lot of desaturation, hue pushes. It has a very distinct look, and in fact, a look that I haven't really seen in many other films. It's definitely very unique, and it's something that you're not going to forget.
No, that's very true. And the good news is that the Blu-ray actually totally gets the look of this film. Whoever was processing this understood that there was a lot of different types of stuff going on, and they really kind of nailed it, apparently.
And it does feature one of the earliest on-screen appearances of Michael Cera.
Oh, yeah, playing the young Chuck Barris. Yeah.
Yep.
That is correct,
So
sir.
there you are, Cyrus, a little extra bonus nugget for one of your favorite movies. Your favorite actor, isn't it?
Yeah. God damn you, George Clooney.
You like Jesse Eisenberg?
Yeah, I like just now.
He's
I'm
Team Eisenberg.
confused.
Which one is which?
And it's even more confusing because we had just started to hate Sarah thoroughly, and then he's in Scott Pilgrim, and you're like, but I can't. Fuck.
Our lives are so hard. We don't know who to hate anymore.
I know. But this, once again, also ports over the extras from the DVD. There's a good commentary with Clooney and with the cinematographer behind the scenes, some deleted scenes, and 23 minutes worth of them, so there's actually some good stuff in there. Mm-hmm. And a way too short interview with Chuck Barris. Considering he had a lot to do with the on-set
I want to hear that guy
making.
talk for hours. Just let him tell me the story again.
Well, it's interesting. All right, so there's all this behind-the-scenes drama behind this film because Charlie Kaufman was pissed at George Clooney because even though Clooney was like, wow, I want to do this so bad, this is the greatest script I've ever read, he drastically changed his script in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And instead of letting Kaufman, like he was used to, be on set and participate in the process, which someone's got to tell Kaufman, you're like the one writer in the world even allowed on set, right? He had Chuck Barris, the original author, come on set and asked him for advice and to help. And apparently he had such a great time, he ended up writing the sequel, which I didn't even know existed, called Bad Grass Never Dies, which is still optioned by this company.
Wow. Bad Grass Never Dies sounds like the appropriate mantra for the altered state of being you should be in when listening to Chuck Barris tell these stories.
I think it's Scott Weinberg's life motto.
That's a good point.
There's a Willie Nelson song with a lyric that goes something like, a box full of dirt weed on Weinberg's shelf.
I think I've heard that song, actually.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. Anyway, moving on. Here's another one. I don't know if you guys got to see Magic Trip. Did you get to watch this?
Magic Trip, no.
Okay.
Although, wait, are we still talking about drugs at this point?
We are.
Because good. Different type, I feel.
Yeah, very different type. Well, maybe not completely. Because I questioned if Clooney was on acid at some points when he was designing Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. But this is a documentary about the real-life story of the Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters bus that drove from one side of the country to the other, ostensibly just to go to the New York World's Fair. but it was in the early 60s, and it's sort of looked by many as being the defining first step across America for like between beatnik and hippie, because like nobody even had the term hippie at that point. I mean,
Right.
This is like pre all that, and these guys, like Kesey always said, we were too old to be beatniks, we were too old to be hippies, we were too young to be beatniks, so we don't know what we were. We were just the merry pranksters. And so all these freaks with a whole bunch of drugs.
They didn't know how to define themselves. So all these freaks getting a buzz. It's like, clearly we know how to define them.
And they drive across the country and taking LSD the whole way. Now, what makes this neat and worthy of not, I mean, you say documentary, great, a bunch of interviews, whatever. The cool thing, the reason this even exists is because they had 4 16mm cameras with them and extensive audio equipment. So they filmed and recorded everything the whole trip across the country. Tapes of which
that is a dangerous game.
Yes, it is. Well, tapes of which have not, and no surprise really, have waited till now to surface.
Yeah. Wondering what the statute of limitations on drug use is.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, I didn't think about
bestiality.
And yeah. Oh shit.
Now that I think about that, I have never done drugs or had sex with my cat. Saying that.
I believe you on the former.
So these directors, they take the footage and they edit it together in a way to tell it as one long story using all this footage, telling the adventures of their voyage with all that stuff there. And then everybody was writing diaries on the way. There's lots of recorded material. So they get professional actors to read out entries from their diaries about each event and their responses years later talking about it. In fact, there's a whole book by Tom Wolfe called The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. It's all about this trip and what happened right afterwards. And they have Stanley Tucci act as like sort of a faux interviewer, like asking questions.
I love Stanley Tucci.
Well, who doesn't
like
like Stanley?
that would
Everyone
honestly
loves
like
Stanley.
that would make me want to watch it on that alone, because that guy, I swear, like the Easy A, anytime it comes on TV, I have to stop and watch, if for no other reason than Stanley Tucci as Emma Stone's father is just fucking hysterical in that movie.
You're right. I love that too. But this is one of those films that if the thought of just watching hippies for 2 hours act like hippies makes you absolutely nauseous.
Then move to Austin.
This isn't going to do anything to change your mind. But it is a real piece of history. It's one of the most remarked upon things that happened during that whole period of time.
Sure.
In a non-political sense anyway. And it's actually pretty goddamn interesting.
And it sounds like they're at least trying some different things with the narrative, so you're not just watching a bus trip for 2 hours.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to watch. So,
or a bus trip, as it were.
Well, they actually have the recording of the first time Ken Kesey, he was the guy who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, amongst other things. The first time he ever took acid in a government experiment, and he has the whole tape of it, and they integrate it into the movie. But there's also, if you care, the whole like hour and a half or whatever is actually on the extras of the DVD. If you feel like listening to Ken Kesey be one of the first people ever to take LSD, then there you go.
That kind of sounds fascinating, actually. I'm not going to lie. I'd like to see that.
You might want to take acid first.
All right. Where's my bag?
All right, you want to introduce this next one?
Yes, this next one, given that we have entered the month of December, it was pretty likely that I guess we're still talking about November, though. I'm getting a little confused here.
We can dance around here.
We're gonna dance a little bit, but yeah, Scrooged was another release in November, and Scrooged it's from 1988, probably my favorite adaptation of A Christmas Carol, starring Bill Murray in the miserly Scrooge type role. But this was directed by Richard Donner, and Bill Murray plays a television executive named. Oh my God!
Frank Cross.
Frank Cross. Jesus Christ! Thank you. Frank Cross, who is exactly like Scrooge. He's greedy. He's kind of a dickbag, and in that special Bill Murray sardonic way. So it's like extra dickbaggish.
He is so good at being a dickbag that you love anyway.
Indeed.
It's kind of like Corey.
Yes. So, pursuant to its source material, he is visited by 3 spirits, and he's warned by a former superior of his, former boss, who has died and revisited him as a ghost, that the track that he's on is going to lead to a very dismal afterlife, and he's going to be sending 3 spirits to try and change his ways. So I mean, it's the story but presented in a way that's very fun and very late 80s Bill Murray comedy.
Yeah, as he's the relationship of his life that he left behind, unlike the original Scrooge story here, you've really got to focus on because he's still young, he's not old, so there's still a chance he can get back with the one who got away, which was played by Karen Allen, who that's great and all, but can we please see her have a drinking contest? That's all I ever I get a little erect.
I have invited her several times to be on mic.
I get a little erect just thinking about it.
We all do.
But then I tell her that, and she declines.
I know. What is that?
I have no idea.
I thought that was
What a
complimentary, especially with the pictures we sent her to go along
But
with.
then I went home with Nancy Allen, so it was all okay.
So the ghosts, what you got? David Johansen, of course, what was it? He was from New York
Buster
Dolls, right?
Poindexter.
Yeah.
As the ghost of Christmas Past. The feeling hot guy himself plays the ghost of Christmas Past. And this is actually one of the things I really like about the movie is it takes the classic story with all its fantasy elements and works in distinctly New York stuff. Like the Ghost of Christmas Past travels around in a checker cab.
Right. And I love the fact that he's appropriate because his band, the New York Dolls, is often credited as being actually the first punk rock band. Really early. Someone like, is it glam rock or is it punk? But either way, they were the New York Dolls. They were the hit of the town in their time. And let's face it, even at this point, David Johansen's time was over.
Yeah, this is a great snapshot of our differing music taste because you know him from this early, possibly first punk band, and I know him as an 80s one-hit wonder.
Yeah, no, he had that too. But then you've got Carol Kane as the Ghost of Christmas Present, of course, who's always funny, and she's hysterical in this. Mm-hmm. And just, of course, Jamie Farr, what an odd choice to play Jacob Marley.
But not the first time we will be mentioning Jamie Farr tonight, so write that one down.
Oh, yeah, he will be coming up again.
Indeed.
But just looking for a second at the actual Blu-ray, this is a decent transfer. In fact, everything I'm hearing is that, from HD Geeks, that this is extremely solid transfer of this film, which is great because it's one of those movies you're going to go back and watch over and over again.
Especially now.
Yeah, well, we will be watching it shortly, I suspect. Because, it's December and everybody wants to have their Christmas parties and you can't have one without Scrooged.
I agree.
You just cannot.
100%.
So, it sounds and looks good, and unfortunately, this is one of those ones that Luke was talking about that just ports over the trailer, despite the fact there was a stack of great bonus features on the last DVD release.
That's unfortunate.
It is. Well, keep going.
All right. Moving right along here.
Might as well move right along.
Since we're already on this theme of Christmas movies, we're going to go with a movie that I'm fairly certain Cyrus has not seen.
Oh, boy. Are we going to out me?
I think we are. We're going to talk about It's a Wonderful Life. I don't know. It's Cyrus. It's this little-known holiday movie. I don't think very many people actually are aware of its existence.
That's what I thought.
I think
no real stars. No real
named
stars.
Director. Some guy named James Stewart, and it was directed by Frank Capra.
Yes, is the correct pronunciation.
Some woman named Donna Reed. Yeah, it's really not even worth your time. Are you kidding me? How have you not seen this yet?
You know what? It was an act of will to not have seen this.
No, how can you not have seen this by now? Like, you've survived several Christmases, and you have a television set.
To say the least.
And you have a television set,
and in the It's a Wonderful Life Blu-ray right here, in fact.
It's true. In fact, I had the DVD, and I gave that away.
Which they even go to the trouble of making it the size of a goddamn pillow, so you can't miss it in the stack.
It comes with an ornament, or some tree of some sort.
It does. It's one of those irritating, like, look how much more special this is, when really it's the same.
It's the exact same fucking
last
disc,
version, just with more cardboard thrown in around it.
It's like, look what we can sell for another $35.
Exactly. Well, that's it's one of those titles that it costs them nothing. They don't have to pay anybody to re-release it. It's in their catalog.
Sure.
Everyone who might get royalties is dead.
That's
and it
true.
sells every single
Jimmy
time because of suckers like you that keep watching this fucking
I'm
movie.
just wondering, whose ear we're going to have to twist to make you watch this.
I don't know. I might actually watch it.
See, every time a bell rings, Cyrus fails to recognize a reference.
The sad thing, though, is that I get every reference that's in this movie because I have seen it satirized so many times.
It's one of those movies that's part of the pop culture lexicon now.
Yeah.
And so you understand the angel gets his wings and all of those sort of references that have permeated the rest of our lives.
Absolutely.
Whether you've seen the film or not.
Yeah, I think I may have seen every scene in this film parodied somewhere else at one time or another. I'm pretty sure you could probably put together an entire remake based of those little scenes.
I think my favorite is the SNL one where they go and they...
the different endings?
Yeah, they beat the crap out of Mr. Potter. They figure out that he's behind the missing money, and they go and they beat the shit out of him.
And what great bonus features that would have been to put on here.
Yes.
But guess what?
They're
not here. There's nothing at all really special with the the extras on here. Like I said, this is the previous one that they put out in 2009, just with more cardboard. And the transfer and everything is thought to be about as good as it gets. I mean, if you really want to see a colorized version of it,
then you should go jump off a bridge, and that angel's not going to save you. You will hit the ice.
But thankfully, they do include the original black and white.
Oh, of course they do. They would be like they would, you know.
No. Don't say of course, because studios do stupid shit all the time.
That's true. But it feels like the colorized thing still.
Dude,
has
don't worry. Lucas wasn't behind this. It's a Wonderful Life release.
That's true.
But yeah, there's just not much here to speak of with the extra features. But God, how much is there to even say about what this film was about without, spoiling it for all the people out there who haven't seen it?
So wait, are you like consciously avoiding this title, or what is the story here?
I wasn't for a long time, but I think it kind of turned around because so many people had challenged me on it over the years. I can't believe you've never seen it. That it kind of turned into a fuck you.
I'm just going to go running up and down your street tomorrow going, Merry Christmas, Cyrus's house! Until you agree to watch the movie.
Just the thought that you might do that if I don't makes me want to not watch it anymore.
This is not working. Clarence, help me out here!
Who's Clarence?
Oh, God,
you know
who Clarence is.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, so I guess moving right along, or do you want to take a break?
Why don't we do one more and then we'll take a break?
Yeah, and we'll tell what one of the giveaves are.
Oh, yes, the giveaways.
All right, go. All right, so this next one is one I haven't watched the original version of this in so goddamn long, and I'd seen the remake and went, man, I wish I could criticize this more based on how I felt about the original, but yeah, it's like it was barely in my head. But now that the Blu-ray's out of the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3,
yes,
considered to be one of the great thrillers of the 70s,
because it is,
because it is, then I'll be able to actually figure out how bad the remake actually was.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we're so saturated with remakes now that as critics we want to be able to readily access all of the originals and judge them, as films themselves, but then also against the originals. But with so many remakes coming out, it's fucking hard to remember all of these originals. So it was nice to be able to go back and revisit. And I, even on recent revisits, still love this movie as much as the first time I saw it.
I haven't seen it, but just looking at some plot notes here, I noticed that the cops are played by Walter Matthau and Jerry Stiller. Is this meant to be a comedy?
It's not. Actually, Walter Matthau is really cool and really collected and just... Man, I love him in this movie.
Sometimes Matthau just plays a badass and stuff. It's surprising, but we know him.
Okay, but Jerry Stiller, though.
All right, so you got me at Jerry Stiller. It seems like something weird is going on.
Clearly you haven't seen his dramatic turn in Zoolander.
I missed that special feature of Zoolander.
But if you've seen this, do you want to talk a little bit about what this is, the plot of this?
I mean, it's basically what it is it's a group of guys that take over a subway train, and they take a group of passengers hostage. And they are asking, they kind of disconnect it from the rest of the train, and they're asking, obviously, for ransom. And Walter Matthau plays the transit officer, who is kind of trying to deal with it. Now, it's important to note that he's not a cop. He's not a hard-boiled detective. He's not, some guy who deals with this on a daily basis. He's basically a civil servant who just went to work one day and had a giant ball of shit dropped in his lap.
Who looks a lot more like a believable, normal, day-to-day civil servant than Denzel Washington.
Yes, as it turns out. Okay. But yeah, it's one of those situations where a lot of the thriller aspects come from this group of guys and their plan and how are they actually going to get away with it, and is Walter Matthau going to be able to cut through the ridiculous amount of red tape that it apparently takes to negotiate with. That's one of the more interesting things that I think this movie goes into that a lot of other movies of this type don't, is that it's not just a cut and dry, like, the hostage negotiator grabs the microphone and then it starts to... Like, he has to, get the right person to make sure they're not on overtime to come down and make sure that, they're not cutting into vacation. It's just... It's this ridiculous amount of red tape, and Walter Matthau's just like, seriously, can we just deal with this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But no, we
have a missile the size of the Chrysler Building.
It's a missile the size of the Chrysler Building. No, one of the things I love most about this movie, though, is Robert Shaw. He's one of my favorite actors, and honestly, this guy was he was a god. He was a god.
It's really too bad he got ate by that shark.
It was really too bad, because he was a god slumming it by walking on Earth with mortals. And he's just he's one of those, he's the leader of the group of hijackers, and he's one of those guys that you can tell has thought about this heist from every conceivable angle and calculated every contingency, that he never gets rattled. Ever. Yeah. And it's just amazing to watch him work.
Yeah, I think one of the strongest things to recommend this over the remake is just the performances. You're right, they're very gritty, they're very believable. Tony Scott, the guy who made the remake, has this tendency of trying to make everything much more flashy than it needs to be. And he also makes the mistake of adding some totally unnecessary subplots. There are no subplots in this movie.
No.
It is just direct and to the point, and let's stick to this as a really streamlined thriller. And it pays off. It really does in a lot of ways. A little bit of trivia here. Oh, well, first off, there's no bonus features of any kind except the trailer, once again. In fact, it doesn't even have a real menu. You've got to do that pop-up menu thing. I fucking hate that. I hate that that's becoming
You
the
want a special
standard
feature,
for
just
a lot
watch
of these.
Jaws.
Also,
That's your special
why do you hate that?
I like having that. I think part
You
of
like
the
having a top
experience
menu?
is having that top menu and the way it's designed and seeing what they do with it. I like that. That's part of the deal. So throwing that out the window just bugs me.
I guess I can see that point, but I feel like it's just one more place where studios try and fuck you. Like, we were watching something the other day that
No, Hatchet, Frozen.
Frozen
Yeah.
spoils like half the fucking movie
Yeah.
in the menu.
no,
You're
no,
like,
see,
There's a second act reveal as they're showing clips, I'm gonna combine these two things. I like having a top menu.
Yeah.
I hate it when the top menu contains scenes from the movie.
But it's like anything else. They can screw it up if they do it
Sure.
wrong. And
Yeah.
sometimes, sure enough, they're like, well, you're watching on Blu-ray. We assume you've already seen it.
Even if it's a movie that, like,
How do you
Frozen
know
had
that?
just
Yeah,
fucking come out.
yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
Especially a limited release like Frozen. It's like, obviously if you bought this, you saw it in the theater.
Which is complete bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit for any movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
no movie should do that. The studios, if you're listening, do not fucking put scenes from the movie in the menu screen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, unless you're going to do things like where you're letting, like, really, very differently stylistic artists do interpretations of scenes.
Yeah, just put Mondo
Something like
posters
that.
in those.
Yeah, like
That's
Mondo
what we're saying.
posters, that kind of thing would be
But
awesome.
confine yourselves to the first act.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Exactly. All right, so just a little note here. I think it was funny because this was actually a huge hit in cities where there were subway.
Odd how that works.
But it bombed everywhere else. It was like nobody saw it in towns without a subway.
But now
Sioux
that
Falls, South Dakota is like, what the fuck is a
I
subway?
know, what's a subway? What's a
taking
movie
a what?
theater?
I don't
And
understand.
even right now, they're like, what's a Blu-ray player? How did we-
and they're not listening to
and they're
this
not-
because they haven't figured out what a podcast is.
or the internet.
You're gonna get like 3 angry letters
I know.
tomorrow.
We probably have
I
like
know.
8 Spill fans in South Dakota that just fucking tuned out entirely.
Usually when we pick on a state like that, we get like 10 letters going, I'm from there, that's funny. And then one guy going, fuck you, buddy. So,
Fuck
yeah.
you, buddy.
Fuck you, buddy.
Well, South Dakota can always pull that. Hey, we don't have speed limits on us.
Yeah,
so
that's a good
true.
point.
That's a good point.
That is a great fuck you card to be able to pull.
But yeah, so it did really well in the cities like Paris and New York. And ever since the film has come out, it's official policy in New York that no number 6 train has ever been scheduled to leave Pelham Bay Park at either 1323 or 123 because
Yeah.
that relates to the film, and they're afraid some obsessed person is gonna
Like us.
Well, and it's
They're
funny.
afraid of us, Cyrus.
They didn't want to actually film it, they didn't want to let them film it on there because they were afraid of real life, like people copycatting, which never happened. But then you look at Money Train, which did actually get copycatted, like more than once apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe their fears were not so bizarre.
Indeed.
Also, keep an ear out for the score here. It was generally thought of as one of the top 10 film scores of all time, at least according to NPR. So, yeah. There
Very
you go.
nice.
The authority on such
The
things.
authority on such- NPR. They're very smart about stuff. They just say it kind of calm and like this.
Yeah, it's one of the top scores you've ever heard.
Isn't it? Isn't it
It's
nice?
time for
It's
Car
good.
Talk.
It's
on
good.
NPR.
It's
Hey,
real.
Car Tag's
Car
awesome.
Talk is badass.
All right, so let's take a second before we go to the break and talk about some of the stuff we're going to be giving away. here.
Giveaways!
Giveaways, man. You will not believe it. I was not kidding when I said we got some badass stuff to give away.
We
here.
are totally bribing you to keep listening.
We are, and I promise you that we will do our utmost to, like, and this just right now, just a once a month show, but whenever we do it, we'll have our utmost to have a ton of shit to give away, so you almost are required, if you like free stuff,
Yeah.
to listen in. And the first thing we're giving away is the complete Blu-ray, the complete set of Farscape on Blu-ray, which of course is that science fiction television show that was done by the Henson Company. I'm a big fan of this. I put this in my Big 3 review because I am such a big fan of it. It's 88 episodes that's packaged together really tight. And wow, it's a pretty expensive thing to give away for free. I think we kind of rock.
No, we are definitely the swag cast at this point.
Once again, keep your ear out. All right, so we will be. Did I explain how these?
Here's how it works.
Here's how it works. We've talked about this so much amongst ourselves, I forget that I haven't actually said it on the mic. What we're going to be doing is over the next week after you hear this, which will be this comes out on Tuesday, so it will be any time up till the next Tuesday. You will have to pay attention to the various casts and posts around Spill that are done by either me or by the Spill crew, looking into the comments pages, because I will at some point post the title of one of the films or a word from the title alone where you can't miss it. It wouldn't make any sense in any other context. And when I do that, you're going to want to send me a message on my page, and that's send a message, not put it on my profile. Send a message that says, hey, I saw this, you posted it at this time on this whatever, whether it's the review for, whatever movie or whatever it may be. And so I know that you didn't just do that ahead of time. Remember, you have to post the time I actually posted it, because it's listed on there. Send that to me, and I'll get in touch, and we'll send you this Farscape thing, along with whatever else we send. And there's so much stuff to give away, I'm going to go ahead and say another one.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, you said you're going to say a word or
like for instance,
from the title of the thing we're giving away.
Something that's unmistaking what it is. Like in case for Farscape, it will be probably just Farscape.
Farscape.
It's one.
The enigmatic
or just maybe
Farscape.
Far.
Yeah.
Escape far.
We broke Luke.
No, I just wanted to clarify because I was a little confused.
Space Muppets.
Space Muppets.
And also, I'm going to try and win. So.
Oh, fair enough. And the other thing I'm giving away is a DVD of 5 Days of War. Now we're going to review this.
Rennie Harlan.
We're going to review this a little later in the show, but I actually enjoyed it.
I hear it's not bad for Rennie Harlan.
It's Rennie Harlan who does action movies, and it's him trying to do a serious action movie. But keep in mind, still an action movie. And I think I have several copies of this actually to give away. I just watched this and I enjoyed it. So remember, that's 5 Days of War. Keep your eyes open on the various Spill sites for that, because we'll be giving away several of those. We're going to take a quick break, at least on our end.
Yep, we're going to get some refills.
We are going to get some refills, and we'll be right back after this